What's up? How you doing? Here we are. Beautiful day today. Beautiful day. Not a cloud in the sky. Perfect temperature. Feels nice. Feels nice. So I was out in the desert today. 99 degrees out there, and it was hot. It was hot, dry heat. Went up there to Charlie Brown's, hung around a little bit, and then came back. But it was hot. So we're gonna have a little bit of this Uncle Nearest 1856. Uncle Nearest 1856 premium whiskey, 100 proof. Remember, drink in moderation, never ever drink and drive. You're gonna find yourself wrapped around a tree, telephone pole, falling off a bridge. So best thing is a little bit, and at home or you're staying over at a hotel somewhere, enjoy it, but in moderation. This stuff right here is always good in moderation. Too much of it, horrible. Horrible. So anyway, premium whiskey 1856. The 50s were never completed. I think the 1850s were, but the 1950s were not. So Uncle Nearest. This is to say Shelbyville, Tennessee, where they make it. Really good stuff. If you see this in the pharmacy or something, pick it up. Good quality. Good quality. So we're gonna try a little bit. The aroma is great. High quality. And we have a glass here. Delicious. Smells delicious. But like I said, moderation. I have water here, fresh. Delicious. We have delicious water. So good. Anyway, I'm gonna try a little bit. Great aroma. I mean, it's like a hint of vanilla and a few other items in there too, which I have no idea what they are. Very good. That's good stuff. When I have whiskey, not that often, every once in a while, it reminds me of the scene in First Blood where they think they killed Rambo, and they meet, the sheriff is inside this local bar, and Colonel Trotman shows up. Or maybe no, the Colonel reversed that. Colonel's already there, he's sitting down, sheriff shows up, and they're having some good whiskey. Reminds me of that. So anyway, that's good stuff. So I'm gonna mention here a little plug. I don't get paid for any of this stuff, so I have some aftershave here. J.S. Sloan 1947 aftershave splash. This stuff is really good. I highly recommend it. You're shaving, nice Track 5, nice lubricant with the, whatever you use, Noxzema, Gillette, Trufford and Hill, right? And then after you do all the shaving, after everything is gone, take some of this, pour it in your hands, put it all over your face, let it dry, you're gonna smell fresh. Really nice stuff, good quality. I mean, I understand all this stuff is subjective to your personal taste, but that's what I'm talking about, my personal taste. It's good. Very good. Good stuff. So J.S. Sloan Made in New York City, it says. New York, USA. 4 ounces. So today I was out and I ran into one of these and I ended up buying it. The Hardy Boys mystery series here, The Mystery of Cabin Island. And you can see, you know, it's creepy. Guy shows up, looks a little bit old, freezing out, looks like there's a storm going on, and he's going into his cabin. I don't know, I've never read this, I don't know what it's about. All of these claim to be written by Franklin W. Dixon, and I think that's like a fake name. So when I was a kid, they remember they used to have people visiting you that wanted to sell you stuff. Like they were traveling vacuum cleaner guys, and printed in the USA. Wow, copyright 1929. I didn't realize it was that old. I thought it was from the 1960s. But I may read one of these just for the hell of it. Just for the hell of it. I don't know if there's any photos in here. I don't think so. Nothing. So in the old days, people would show up at your house. Vacuum cleaner guy would come and demonstrate. I don't know how successful these people were by knocking on your door trying to sell you a vacuum. We would just go to Sears. The other people that would show up were insurance people. They would come to your house and try and sell you a policy. And then you had the encyclopedia people. Well, we had all three show up throughout the years. Delicious. So we had the insurance guy. My father, that's not a LAPD. That kind of like snuck out of nowhere. That looks homemade. Anyway, so the insurance guy would always show up. My father always had an appointment with the insurance guy. You know, health insurance, all this kind of stuff. And they would show up, they'd ring the bell. My mother would go and open the door for them. They'd show up and they'd go into the dining room. My father always used the dining room for the insurance people. And there would be like 30,000 sheets of paper all over the place on the table, going through stuff. My father had a briefcase that he had in the closet, and when the insurance guy would show up, he'd grab that, had all the documents in there, and they'd spend like an hour or so talking. And then one day I came home and there was a dude in the dining room with my father there talking, and it was the encyclopedia guy. I don't know how this guy got our address. I don't know if my father tipped him off where we live. So he was there, and they were talking about buying the encyclopedia. And my father, he was, we need that. And he ended up buying, so it came back then in installments, the installment plan. Every, I don't know, a few months or so, you would get like, I don't know, 10, 15, whatever it was, 10, 12. And we ended up getting the first portion, right? So we ended up getting like, I don't know, about 10, 12 of them. And then we ended up getting the whole, because I guess this was a combined thing. You got the Hardy Boys and the encyclopedia, but the Hardy Boys, we got the whole thing. You know, that one arrived in one shot. I remember these big boxes showed up at my house. UPS brought them, I don't know, somebody brought them. They were downstairs and we brought them up, we opened them up, and it was all Hardy Boys, the entire series. And we put them into my bookshelf, nice and neat. I never read one of them. Never read, I don't know, it was just not interesting to me. But I did use them to store cash. Anytime I had a few extra dollars, I would pick one of these books, put it inside, and then put it in, you know, I'm not talking here a lot of money. I'm talking like, you know, $30, $20, stuff like that. And then I would spend, I don't know, forever trying to find them. It's like, what book was that? And start flipping through. So anyway, those came in one shot, but the encyclopedia was divided, and after the first installment, my father said, "That's enough for that. We don't need that." So we stopped. So my bookcase had like a dozen encyclopedias from A to F, I don't know what it was, and all the Hardy Boy books. And every once in a while, I would pull out the Hardy Boys, and I would look at the covers. Thought they were all cool covers. They had one I remember was like Mystery on the Cliff. There was a cabin or something up on the cliff, and the Hardy Boys were down below in a boat, something like that. But yeah, I used to use, like, I would put cash in and close it, and the cash was always in tinfoil. That was my secret money, in case, I was always saving for a go-kart. My whole life I was always saving for a go-kart, and that never happened. I never got one. So I remember one time I had 80 bucks. 80 bucks. I had 10s, I had 5s, and I used to iron them. I'm talking here like 5th grade. I would iron them once a week, and they were really crisp, flat, no wrinkles. They were brand new, but I would give them another, nice iron. And I had this big Wagner and Funk dictionary. It was like one of those really thick ones. Every word that has ever been used by Bob Dylan was in there. And so I found the middle. I took all the pages, divided by 2, and I got the middle, and I had my $80 hidden in that dictionary. And every time, I would dream about my little go-kart, I would open up my dictionary and pull out the 80 bucks. Now, 80 bucks when I was back in the 5th grade was a lot more money than now, so don't judge based on today. Anyway, I ended up writing these letters. I used to stay up late at night. I was a letter writer. I had this yellow notepad thing going on, and I would sit in my bed with my knees bent, and I'd use them as a platform, and I'd write. And I remember that letter I wrote to a place that sold go-karts, and I said, "Can you please send me information on the go-karts that you have?" And I mailed it off, and then like a couple of weeks went by, and I went down to get the mail, and there was this thick packet with my name on the front, and I said, that's got to be the go-karts. So I went in my room. Everything was secretive. Closed the door, and I opened it up, and it was 3 go-karts with stats. It was the specs, and so I sat there reading the information, top speed, horsepower, everything was in there, the weight, the length, all that. And I saw the one I wanted. The one I wanted was $900, $900 and something dollars, but it was worth it. It was red, which I'm not a big fan of red, but it was a good one. And it was solid, heavy duty, big, muscular looking. And I said, I got to get that one. So every time, there was a holiday, some relative would give me, a 10 or something, I would take it and put it into my stash. I collected 80 bucks. But $80 is nowhere near close. I needed almost 1,000, with taxes and everything. And so I decided I was going to start selling books. I had every year, at the end of the year, the school would come up with these big boxes of books that were trash, and they would say, "Anybody want these books?" And I would grab them. I had tons of science books, history books, all that, and I would take them and put them into my bookshelves. And I had maybe, I don't know, 70 books from the schools over the years. And I didn't want to do the math. I didn't want to be disappointed. But I said, you know what, if I sell all these books, probably if I take that and the $80 I have, I can put it towards a go-kart and buy a go-kart. So one Friday night, I was motivated, and I had these stickers, and I wrote prices for what I thought each book was worth. So I sat down, and the thin books were 5 cents. Medium books were like a dime. and then the thick books were 25 cents, right? Now keep in mind, you need 40 of those just to make $10 for the 25 cents ones, right? So I wasn't doing the math. I didn't want to know. I was thinking in my head that if I sold everything, it would be like 900 bucks. So that's going to be all 900. So here I am at night, all excited, thinking about the go-kart, have the sheets out with the pictures. And my father, who never would come in my room unless he had a good reason, he just didn't show up, say I want to hang out here, never came in my room. That night, that's LAPD. That night he shows up, wanted to ask me something, so he came in, and I was on the bed with the books and the prices. And he says, what are you doing? And I was so excited. I said, this is a good idea. I'm going to tell him. Generally, I would say nothing. I'm just, I'm putting the books away. I'm just fixing them up. I said to him, tomorrow I'm going to have a book sale. I'm going to raise some money. I need some money. And he goes, don't do that. Don't sell your books. He goes, what do you need? You need $5? I'll give you $5. And that kind of took the air out of my balloon. He said $5. If he said, what do you need? You need $600-700? I'll give you that. I would have been happy with that. I would have been like, give me the 600, put the 80, a couple more Christmases, a couple more holidays, I'll be closer to the 900. But he didn't say that. He said, you need $5? And I said, no, I don't need $5. And since he was so low, I got discouraged. And I just, and then I took all my books when he left the room, and I put them back into the bookshelf. I had a bookcase, actually. I put them all back. And then for years, when I would pull out a book to look at, I would see the little sticker from when I was younger with the prices, and I remember I wanted to do that. And I think if I counted all the books and sold them, I would have made like every single book, the dime ones, the nickel ones, the quarter ones, it would have been like maybe $25, $30, something like that. Nowhere near what I needed. But I had this fascination with getting a go-kart, and plus in those days I thought that you could drive the go-kart as a kid on the street. So I pictured myself just driving in my neighborhood, going all around, parking it, somewhere up the street. And then I pictured myself on the main road going to the mall. The mall was busy in those days, and I always saw myself, driving to the mall, parking there, shutting it off, going inside, doing a little shopping, and then getting back in the go-kart and heading back home. I didn't realize that was illegal. So, I mean, you could have a go-kart, you have to have your own space, like the backyard. And even today, I mean, now I've been driving for 100 years, but so it doesn't have the same feeling. But even today, I enjoy a go-kart. I will go to the go-kart place in Burbank, and they have those super fast ones, and the floor is made out of that rubber material, so you can't slide off. I mean, you take the sharp turns and it sticks. So I go there, and every once in a while I will try one out. And those are all electric, but I prefer the gas ones because they have the roar. That's what I want. I want it to sound like a lawnmower. So yeah, that was a dream of mine when I was a kid, and the desire I had, man. But I could never save 900 bucks. LAPD again. So yeah, because 900 bucks when you're a kid, that's a lot of money. That's not like you need $30, whatever, but 900, to me 900 back then was like somebody said like 20,000. So, yeah. And then we went, when I was little, we ended up going to Arizona. Went to Arizona there. My father knew some people there, and we stopped by. They had a pizza place or something. We went in there, my father was talking, and then they invited us to their house. And they had two kids, my age and my sister's age, boy, girl. And the kid goes, "You want to go out?" He had a three-wheeler, and I said, "Yeah, I want to go out. What do you think?" So we went out, and they had this big property in the back, and we went out on the trails with the three-wheeler, and it was awesome. It just revived my feelings for wanting to get something like that, specifically a go-kart, but I would have settled for a mini bike as well. So I remember my sister's friend there, they ran out of gas, so they had to walk back home and get a gas container and fill it up and go back, but I wanted one of those, but I was from the city, you know, and where was I going to have that? And they were from this rural area in Arizona, and they had all this open area in the back, all these trails, and I was like, I got to get to Arizona. And I think if I lived in Arizona, my father would have bought me one without me asking. So anyway, that never happened though. So yeah, unrealized dream. Most of them are like that. Yeah, just, you know, I wish I had a neighbor that had a go-kart. It would say, go in the back and, you know, do some loops, figure eight. And of course, I really like the mini bikes. I would check them out too. We had a place where I would get my bike repaired, and that guy sold go-karts and mini bikes. But he sold like old beat up ones. You know, they looked like they were in a war. And I didn't want those. I thought the mini bikes were okay, but they you know, looked tarnished. So I would always check them out. I'd go down there, and sometimes even when my bike was fine, I would go park the bike in the front, go inside, go in between all the bicycles, and up on the wall you had the go-karts and the mini bikes, big hooks. So I would go and look at them, and he looked like a leprechaun. He was a little guy, leprechaun looking guy, and he would say, "Hey, need any help?" I go, "I'm just looking." It got to the point where he would see me coming and he wouldn't ask anymore because he knew I was just looking. So yeah, and now, you know, it's very popular to have a bike, but you don't pedal anymore. Nobody pedals now. It's all electric. No, you don't hear any sound. You're like, oh, what's going on there? I want to hear the, you know, that. I want to hear that. They have to have simulation sound machines where you can put it on a bike and have the sound of a motor, you know, humming. So anyway, they don't. Times have changed. Kids don't really ride bikes anymore either. I mean, it's all. I saw 4 kids today riding bikes up in not too far from Santa Monica, and they were all dressed up with the helmets. They had the proper jackets on, you know, so they don't fall and hurt themselves. And I'm like, where's the risk? Where's the risk in all that? Zero. Takes away the fun if there's no risk. Sip it slow. You ever see these young people, they put a shot and they down it? What's the point of that? You know, that's a waste of money. You know, you're supposed to enjoy it. You sip it slowly, have a conversation with somebody, you know, someone you just met, say, hey, you know, what's going on with those Dodgers? But when you do shots, nah. Plus hard liquor, you know, gets you off guard. You know, you're drinking it quick, you think you're a tough guy, and you handle your liquor and all that nonsense. He can handle his liquor. And then all of a sudden, you realize that you had a little bit too much, because there's a you know, a delay effect. By the time it hits your stomach and by the time your brain notices, there's a delay effect. So if you have a bunch of them and you think you're fine, you're handling the liquor, as they say, then all of a sudden you're dizzy, and you know, you're walking like you're on a boat in a storm. So I don't like to do that. Slow and enjoy. Good flavor, you know, good color, good aroma. Uncle nearest. They have the formula down. I mean, what I mean is that they've perfected it. This is good stuff. I'm not kidding. This is good stuff. This is not Ripple, but whiskey version. This is good stuff. 1856. And I think if they write premium whiskey, they have to be telling you the truth. They can't just write that. And I love the bottles, like solid. Never buy hard liquor in plastic. Disgusting. You ever go somewhere and somebody says, you want a little bit of whiskey? And you go, yeah, I'll have a little bit. And then you look over and you see it's all Dixie cups, plastic, red Solo cups, and you're like, I don't want that. I think red Solo cups and Dixie cups and all that, you know, made out of plastic, I think it makes alcohol taste disgusting. You know, but glass and cold, it's okay. You know, you have a little bit and it's okay, but the plastic, you know, it's just awful. So I'd rather not have it. Or I'd rather bring my own glass and say, use this glass. Give me a little bit. I remember General Hospital, the Quartermains, they used to have a bar, and they were doctors, you know, Monica and, what was the husband there, Alan Quartermain. And they, what's going on here? And they'd get home and they had this really nice crystal, you know, what do you call those? It's like a crystal vase, I don't know, vase, and it had some kind of hard liquor in it, and then they'd pour it in and they'd give it, you know, with the ice to the other person. They'd take sips as they're talking, and they were always relaxing. Every day was a little bit of a drinky poo. And I used to watch that show for a bit in 1983 when Luke Spencer got stuck up on a mountain. He got trapped in an avalanche and he got paralyzed. And there was a nurse, Natasha, who brought him back and healed him, and he was able to walk again. And I should say, on a sad note, that Robert Scorpio, what's his name, Tristan? Robert Scorpio, which is a cooler name, he died a few days ago, and he was on there for like 40 years. Robert Scorpio, what a cool name, Scorpio. And I remember he was like police commissioner when I would watch it. He had a house, nice house, and he had this secret office. Hit a button, door, the wall would open up, and then he would go in there, and he had this computer, big computer that by today's standards looks ridiculous, but back then, you know, everybody was like, that's from the future. And he would type in, you know, whatever, and it would give him the information up on a black and white screen. Well, he died. And very sad because, you know, he suffered a bit towards the end. But I remember he was married to Holly for a while. Remember they were going to deport her, and he married her. That's when they thought that Luke had died, Luke Spencer. So, and he didn't die. And then I remember there was a Friday episode where he shows up and she's coming down the stairs and he pops in the house somehow and she sees him and she faints, and then the show stops there. But I did watch it for a couple of months when that storyline was going on, the avalanche. So I think, you know, he was up there. It was like 80 years old, 79. Robert Scorpio, Australian guy. He knew the men at work. What's going on?
Do they look good?
Yeah, where'd you get them?
Mama got them for me.
Oh, what are they?
Cat-sized sunglasses. Man, do they look good? Yeah.
Everybody's out here now. Okay.
Love you.
Love you. What are you guys doing now? What are you doing now?
Practicing piano.
Oh, okay. So, that's it. That's it. I think we're going to have a nice nice pizza tonight. I think that's what I heard. But you know, they made good pizza up the street. That's it for now. Ciao.